Recently, I wrote an article on Ashnode on how to build your own dark mode with Tailwind CSS and Next.js. And today, I would like to translate this article directly here through this video to create in our portfolio a dark mode in our React application. So in this React application, we've got actually Tailwind CSS that is available everywhere. So the first step, we would like to display actually the dark mode. So on Tailwind CSS, you need to go to the tailwind.config.js, and on dark mode here, you got to add class between an array. It will tell actually Tailwind to be turned into dark mode or light mode by just adding to the root of our application, basically here on the HTML side here, a dark class. And so after that, we will be able to apply classes under the dark identifier. Okay, so that's the first step. The second step that we need to do is to go to our CSS file or SCSS file. So me here, I got an index.css, okay? And here I can see that what I got here is a body with a text black, and we can see these dark and 2 points here, BG Slate 900, which means that if I turn here my application to dark by default, this is not here the actually the background white. So here we can see that if I put BG 500, suddenly red 500, suddenly it's red. If I put BG white, it's going to be white. And if I don't put anything by default, it's going to be white. Okay. So if I go down here to my index.html, okay, and I put basically here on the top a class here and dark, we can see that suddenly I turn into BG Slate 900. Because here I just put the identifier dark that helps me to apply this class. And it's exactly the same for the text, okay? Here I put here the text, I can put text red 500 for example. And we can see we got the text red 500. Here I'm going to apply text white. So we can see that with this dark identifier, I can easily say, hey, on dark, you behave this way. On white, you behave this way. Okay, so I'm just going to reopen here my HTML file. And of course, I'm going to remove dark. So what we need to do is to build a component that when we're going to click on it, going to add the class dark or white directly to our root HTML file. So this is totally possible, but for that, we will need to actually create a dark mode component. So at the root here of my component, I'm going to create a dark mode.jsx file, and there we go. And I got this header, which is totally empty, and this is in this header that I'm going to import my dark mode, okay? So I'm just going to initiate a dark mode component, which is here, and I'm going to import dark mode here, coming from the component directly up here. So I'm going to import dark mode from @/component/dark mode, and we should be good. If I save, there we go, we can see that we've got our dark mode here on the top. Okay, so now we're gonna write here this basically this component, and I'm going to put it that way for you to be more clear. Okay, so I'm just going to close here the header, and I'm going to come here on the dark mode. Okay, so let's start to write this dark mode component that will help us to basically switch between light and dark. Okay, let's write this dark mode component. First step, we are going to use useEffect and useState. And here I'm going to use a variable called dark and setDark, which will be here of type Boolean if I'm on TypeScript. And by default, it's going to be false, which means that by default, we're gonna have here a component that will not apply the dark value to our HTML root. Okay. The other thing we need to do here is to use useEffect, okay, and we need actually to actually change something if dark is on true or false, okay? So what I want to do here is to target my root element, and I need to call the object window coming from JavaScript. However, in TypeScript, when we build when we launch the component, when we render the component, we don't get access immediately to window. So there's a trick here that we need to apply. We need to check if window exists or not. So what you would do at first is to type window like this. However, here you're gonna have an error all the time because the window probably doesn't exist yet. So what we wanna do, we wanna do type of, we wanna say window, and if window is, the type of window is not undefined, we can trigger something. Otherwise, we don't enter into the condition and we don't actually trigger any error. Okay, from here we want to target the root of our HTML file. So I'm going to type const root here, and here I'm going to target window.document element. So here it's not document with a capital letter, it's more like this. And here we're going to type document element. Okay, so we target inside documents the document element, which is basically our HTML root, the HTML root tag that we got. Okay, now that we've got this, we need to check if dark, okay, is on true or false. So it's really simple. I'm going to write it like I was a junior developer. Okay, if it's dark, we're going to do something, otherwise we do something else. And here I'm going to target the root, okay? So we know that root exists at this point because we know that window exists, okay? So I'm going to type class list, okay? And I'm going to add the class dark, exactly like we would do, for instance, in jQuery, inside the jQuery environment. We want to target with JavaScript the root class list. Okay, there we go. Otherwise, if it's not dark, we want to remove dark. So I'm just going to use exactly the same line, and instead of add, I'm going to add remove. And we already see here that there is a trick. If I put add, we see that dark is on false, and we see that our dark mode is already working. So that's really good. Okay, this is done. We've got it. Now we just need to use some icons like a sun and a moon in order to display or not, basically, to display or not the dark and light mode. So I'm just going to remove that. And down here, what I can do is just to use the ternary operator that we got here. And we're going to do something. Otherwise, we're going to do something else. Okay? Remember, so far, so good. We have Lucid React, which is actually a library that gives us access to many different icons. And there's already the moon and the sun available on Lucid React that we can use, okay? So if we add them directly down here, basically this is the result. We've got the sun here, and I gave some height and some width, and we've got the moon down here. So if it's dark, we're gonna show the sun. If it's night, sorry, we're gonna show the moon. And we can see up here that we've got our little icon that shows us that it's the moon. So if you are on a white background, of course, you want to go to night, so you show the moon. And we're going to see the opposite just after. All right, once it's done, it's really easy. We just need to put an event on this division. And this event is going to be an on-click event. It's really easy to understand. So here, I'm just going to put here an on-click event on the division, okay, and I'm going to just apply the opposite of the dark value, which is up here, which is the false one. So I'm going to also add some Tailwind classes, some pointer, and we should be good. So far, our dark mode component is working, and what I propose you to do is to test it. So here it's a little bit, it's just too little. I'm going to add probably some space to it. Let's say, there we go, a little bit more, probably a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so we've got here the moon, and if I click on it, look at that. Our dark mode is working, and if you look just here on the top, I got the class dark that is added and removed to the root. Okay, so our root is just targeted here by the by the JavaScript function, not function, but code that we put there. And we add or remove dark depending up here on the user state, okay? So I click here and there we go. The last thing that we miss and that we're gonna do just after, Now that I got here my dark mode, if I refresh the page, it turns automatically to light. Why? Just because here by default, dark is on false. If I put dark on true here, we can see that by default, your app is going to be always on true. Okay, so I'm just going to put it on false. Just after, we're gonna look at the local storage, how to use the local storage, and we're gonna have some piece of code to it. So if I come back to what I did, I created a dark mode component that I just wrote, and I put the dark mode component inside my header, which is on the top of my application, just here. And the dark mode carries the whole logic itself. And this dark mode component helps me to trigger or not the dark identifier of Tailwind CSS. Now, if I go to index.css here, I can see that I put the dark class, which is here, BG Slate 900. If I remove it, of course, nothing will be applied anymore because Tailwind doesn't know which class to apply, so it doesn't do anything. So I really need to put each time this dark here that we've got to identify the behavior of my application. So as you can see, the dark mode is really easy to do, really easy to understand. Once you've done it one time, you can use it for all your applications.